Okay, we're going to talk about our Brick and Stratton, excuse me, 8.75, 199 cc's, 3000 psi pressure washer. So I'm going to show you some of the stuff that I do when I do a service on these type of things. Look over the general condition. This one's been set up for a while. Actually, this has been set up for about 3 to 4 years. I've been having problems with it because of the carb. I have a new carb on order. But inspect the cover, make sure there's no bird droppings and leaves, dead lizards. Check the exhaust. Check the air intake after you take out the filter. I put this filter on maybe about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when I first got this from my parents. My dad had problems with this because he ran that ethanol-based fuel, which I told him not to do, but he didn't want to spend the extra money for real fuel. Inspect the gas tank up in here to make sure that you don't have any kind of heavy debris. What I did earlier is I took off this line and I ran some clean gas through this tank just to make sure this thing was cleared, and it was. Later on, I'll go ahead and pull off that oil tank thing, and I'll flip it over and drain out the oil. But down here on the pump, this is the main reason for this video. Let me get my stuff sorted again. There is this soap nipple nozzle thing. Let me get the spring again. And it goes something like that. I lost it again. There is a stupid ball bearing looking thing. This guy here. It goes in. Let me see if I can get my finger up in there. And then we have this spring. The small end of the spring goes in here. I like to take these apart. The reason why, if you see a heavy amount of rust up in there or calcium, then you know that the pump system probably has rust and calcium. Well, also I did a couple of days ago is I filled these two nozzles, the inlet and the outlet, with vinegar, and I let it sit there, and then I back drained it, and then I ran water through this thing. The other thing that we end up doing here is, let me show you real quick. This little thing up here is a oil pump, I don't know what the right, fill plug, I guess, and it's the seal. It's held on by this little plastic cover. All you need to do is unscrew this and just make sure you see oil there. Don't overfill it. I mean, you can't really oil fill it because if you turn it back on the all four or all two legs, it will drain out any excess oil. But just make sure there's oil there. When you tighten this thing in, just tighten it by hand first, and just put maybe a quarter to 3/4 turn with like a pair of sockets or whatever. For oil, I'm using this brand. It's one little container. It does both of my pumps for the most part. You can get this at Home Depot, maybe Tractor Supply. Maybe I got this at my local hardware store. Pay a little bit more money, but it's right down the street, so whatever. On the thermal relief valve, let me show you here real quick. Thermal relief valve comes down here. I'm not going to flip it back around. This is the original one I just took out. And it has this cap that goes on this way. Okay, so that's the cap. You got to just use some gentle force techniques to get this cap off. And then you inspect the inside of this once you take it off. I use a standing locking wrench, but you should use a box wrench. This one's easy to get to because it's a vertical shaft. The thing is not close to the body. But you unscrew this guy out. And just look up in there to make sure you don't see a heavy amount of junk calcium. That kind of give you an idea of how much calcium buildup or rust buildup might be into the pressure washer unit itself. So I'm going to put on a generic new one. This kit I bought had two. Let's see if I can clean this a little bit. Made in China, which is no news there. But I got two, so I figured I was just going to change it. Per most manufacturers, they suggest that you change this thing like every 2 to 3 to 5 years. It's basically a serviceable part, like no different than changing like an oil filter in a car. What happens is when you run water to this pump, and when it's in the bypass mode, the water will heat up. And what this thermal valve is supposed to do is let that heat come out by opening up and draining the water off. Circulating that water through the pump is what keeps the pump cool. So that's what that valve does. You can buy these in a kit. If you go to a you go to a pressure washer shop, which I think they're selling you the exact same thing that you get for out of this bag. They want like $25 for this stupid thing. I think I got mine on Amazon. I'll put the links in there, but I think I paid $14 maybe for this one. On the nipple and the plug, I'm going to reuse this one because I don't see no rust in there. It's not clog. You can see daylight through there, and it's not clog. So I'll put this thing back on. I don't need to put a gasket or nothing, and I'm going to just hand tighten this with a box wrench, and I'll take care of this part. But that's pretty much what I do to service these type of pressure washers. And just make sure you clean the spark plugs every so often. Run real gas through here. It's just way less headache down the line. Pay the extra money for real gas. And then for long term, you can put some kind of a antifreeze or loop here. And for the fuel tank, you want to put in like mystery oil, like run it all the way dry, put some mystery oil with some stabilizer, and then circulate that through the fuel tank, and then just put it away for storage. Grill can, break and stratum. That's the pressure washer. This is an old one too, about maybe 15 or 16, 18 years maybe, but it runs pretty good too.